Hello, everybody. Yeah, welcome to Just for Women Africa. And my name is Olaleko Amusov, the founder of Just for Women Africa. Today, on a Zoom interview all the way from Nairobi, Kenya, we have with us Navalayo, who is the CEO and founder of Enda, an athletic shoe company. They make shoes for runners in Kenya to be used all over the world. She'll be talking to us about her journey, why she decided to create shoes, running shoes, and her plans for the future. So stick around and we'll be right back. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Just for Women Africa. We have us, Navalayo. Navalayo, you're welcome to Just for Women Africa.
Thank you very much. I'm super happy to be here.
You're welcome. Okay, Navalayo. My first question would be, why did you decide to create a company, making shoes, trainers for runners?
The reason was very clear. One, Kenyan athletes and Ethiopians as well have really dominated the international running market for a really long time. And I realized that we have been in that industry as players in the marketing space. So, you kind of grow there, but that doesn't necessarily give you any economic wealth when you're compared to how other countries have used their reputation. So, for example, Germany has a reputation for precision and engineering, and they have really monetized that. Same to Italy and fashion. But when it comes to running, Africa really hasn't played that big of a role. And so my motivation was growing up around athletes and seeing how the vicious cycle of poverty continues. You're at the peak of your career, you make a lot of money, which, in Kenyan money is a lot, but in the grand scheme of how much that money is supposed to last for the rest of your life, it doesn't. And so you kind of have athletes peak and poverty, and it happened so much. And I was like, why don't we have something that actually taps into the global market for footwear? Why can't we start something of our own and spread that spread that industry so that more people, not just the athletes, can be able to benefit from Kenya's reputation? And that was the reason for starting Enda.
My next question would be, of course, you have competitors around who have been around for decades, generations. What's the difference between the Enda athletic shoes and your competitors?
One of the misconceptions a lot of people have is that we are competing with the big boys who've been there for decades. The running shoe industry is actually very, very niche. And if you look at the top three performers, they're not even Nike, Adidas, or the usual suspects. The running industry has basically shown over the past 10 years that all the top of the top five running shoe, with the exception of companies like Brooks, a lot of the new companies are newcomers. They've not lasted. I think the oldest is about 15 years, then around 12 years. So the average age of the top running shoe company right now is about 10 years. So you're looking at a company like the Swiss brand On running shoes. You're looking at Ultra, Hoka. All those are niche running shoes that didn't exist more than 15 years ago. And so when we look at that, we basically say, if such companies have been able to grow and really dominate the running shoe industry, niche specifically, why can't Enda be able to do so? So the other bigger brands focus on a wide variety of sports. So they're basically known for that. But running and runners are a very niche market. And in that market, it's really fair game for whoever can come and show that they have a really good product and can serve the needs of the customers.
The shoes, and are they made in Nairobi, Kenya, or they're made elsewhere around the world?
We get parts from, currently the parts that we have, we get parts from Asia. And then we put the assembly and some value addition in Kenya. We do it in a little town off Kenya's coast. It's called Kilifi. The reason why we did this is because we decided to partner with a local factory that is dedicated there. The population is also, a rural population, and it's a place where we are creating impact in terms of what we want to achieve. So that's where the shoes are being made, and from there we kind of send them to different places around the world where people can buy them.
All right, so let's talk about how when you got started. I mean, you had the idea. How did you go around raising funds, to build the shoe? Did you get funds? Was it from your savings, or it was from family and friends?
That's a good question, because funding is usually the biggest challenge for entrepreneurs in Africa. We did manage to invest in it until we got a pair of samples for the shoes. So just basically from drawing to a pair of shoes was more of savings and friends and family. And then now to kind of go mass market, we decided to do crowdfunding, where we said, here's the samples, here's how it looks like. If you buy in advance, we'll be able to make them in a certain period of time. And that's how we were able to pre-sell shoes in advance, get the money from customers who were buying the shoes at a discount because they were allowing us to go and actually make them and bring it back to them. So crowdfunding really was the crux of us finding our footing in the market and finding our first customers.
So after crowdfunding and raising all the funds, how have you been able to sustain the company till now? Just to rely on crowdfunding in terms of funding for the business?
We have done a second crowdfunding for the launch of our second shoe. That was a good model. And we have also received financing from angel investors. At some point, also the business kind of has to grow and have a steady financing. Traditional banking institutions have been difficult because, they ask for collateral. I don't have collateral. I just have like an idea which I think would work. So what we've been doing is looking for angel investors who are the ones that have taken the company this far.
Could you tell us about the type of shoes you make? Do you have one product or you have several?
Yeah, we have several types of shoes. So when we started this company, we thought there would be one type of shoe where we'd say this is the ultimate running shoe. But when we were consulting with the Kenyan athletes, what came out very clear is that there are different types of runs, and each run requires a different type of shoe. And that's basically how we engineered the company. Right now, we have three types of shoes. One is a lightweight trainer. The description of it is just basically, I want to run without feeling like I have shoes on my feet. It's very light. It provides great cushioning. It's ideal for training or for shorter distances because, you can kind of hit the pavement on the road. So that one is the first shoe that we launched. And then we have a daily trainer. The daily trainer is more cushioned, so it's more for marathons, longer distances, because it's supposed to give you comfort for a longer ride. And last but not least, we have a trail shoe, and the trail shoe is supposed to be for rugged environment. It's waterproof. It has nylon plate in the middle that's as hard as a rock. Nothing can penetrate through. So you can go with it basically in the wilderness or in the trails, and your feet will be nice, warm, safe, and dry.
My next question will be, so the shoes basically they're promoted by Kenyan athletes. Do you have any other country or athletes around the world who are promoting the shoe, Enda?
Yeah, we have our own crop of athletes that we've been working with. As you know, and also as I know, a lot of the athletes who are at their prime have X number of years to be able to make the money. So we're not able to get the top athletes, but we do work with the young and upcoming athletes because we believe that they are the future and they're going to be able to dominate. So our athletes should be showing up in the scene pretty soon. And at the same time, we're also showing that, we kind of have to invest in the youth and the future, basically, because that's where we think we're going to make a bigger difference than the guys who've already been around. They've already worn different types of shoes. We want the ones who are truly showing that, this is it. This is part of the secret to our success.
All right. You're a woman in leadership. What does it feel being a woman, heading in such a sports brands like that in Kenya? I interview a lot of women around the world, and one thing that always keeps on coming up is the fact that women are not taken seriously, even if they're at the top. As soon as you walk into the boardroom or go for a meeting, just the fact that they're a woman. Do you experience such things?
I think I've been lucky enough not to experience that. It's always been work from the get-go, and all our partners we've been very clear on the goal that we want to achieve. So I haven't experienced that. I think all the people I've worked with have been very professional, very respectful, very let's go get what we've set out to achieve. The only thing I would say is that there are less women at the top. So there isn't any performance running shoe brand from Africa. Let's start there. In the entire world, despite a lot of athletes coming from Africa. So there's that. And then now the industry has improved a bit with kind of like appointing women this past 2 years, but prior to that, there were no women in leadership at all. And then even with the partners that we work with and the people we negotiate with, it's in most places you are negotiating with men and stuff like that. So they don't make me feel different, but I do see the lack of women in decision-making places where, the decisions are done. You will see them in the factory floor where they're sewing and they're stitching. There'll be a lot of women. You will see them in the smaller parts of the supply chain, but as you go up, they kind of disappear. So that made me think in terms of the structure of the industry and the structure of capital access, there's definitely something that's keeping women from being able to grow wherever they are and go to a higher level where they can be part of decision making.
Do you think women ever get to the point of where, that the high level of decision making, or, things will still be the way, or to take a really long time?
No, I think they'll get there. Other industries, it's they've managed to do it. I think the footwear industry is specific because they don't just have a problem with women, it's also diversity. Like you just don't see a lot of Black people in leadership. And so I think, because you have to kind of look at both layers at the same time. Why are a certain type of people not at that level, and why are women also not at that level? So if you look at other industries, I think they've been able to achieve that. Footwear is a very capital intensive process, whether you're running a factory, whether you're leading a supply chain, whether you are sourcing products, it's very capital intensive. I do think that's part of the reason why, women just haven't been able to get to that point. You need a lot of money to be able to be in this business. And, especially from an African perspective, property ownership and stuff like that, you really have to work hard to get that level of money. And you also need to have the expertise and knowledge in the industry to be able to do something and say, I want to try my hand in this industry. So it's hard to have that industry experience without having been kind of like rising through the industry. And it's hard to rise through the industry without having that experience and having the money. So it's like a difficult balance.
I totally understand your point of view. Okay, so as we bring the interview to a close, could you tell us what's the future for Enda?
The future for Enda is bright. I mean, as I said earlier, that there isn't any performance African footwear brand. And when I started it, I was thinking about Kenyan running. And the more we've worked, the more I've just thought about African representation. There isn't really any African performance footwear brand. We're very much represented in the lifestyle. And also, if you look at current world trends, I think the world is very much skewing towards Africa. If you look at population trends, Africans are just going to be more by population over the next couple of decades. If you look at music industry, we're dominating. If you look at fashion, there's just so many fashion, music, film. There's a lot of places where the world is looking at Africa for inspiration. And so when I see where Enda is positioned, I'm like, there is no other African sneaker brand that is really targeting performance running. And so the future, I think, is very, very bright for us. But the key thing isn't to think of it just as a purely economic venture. We also have to look at what does this mean from a social perspective. For Africa, does it mean we create more jobs? Does it mean we create more funding available for entrepreneurs or for people who want to venture in sports? Because sport doesn't pay in Africa a lot compared to other countries where people, are multimillionaires from sports. And that's what I want to change, quite honestly. I want to create a vehicle through which we as Africans are creating change and making possibilities for people in sports to thrive. If they end up going to the competition, I'm actually okay with that. If we are able to provide a competing offer that allows them to go to the table and say, I have an offer for this and that, can I do more? Because I do think ultimately the people who build Africa are Africans. And we kind of have to figure out a way to work together, even if it means our interests or directions are different. But we do know that if you benefit and I benefit, the continent benefits. And that's the goal for the brand, for it to be a catalyst for other people and other change that ultimately brings the continent up.
Okay. What's your advice to women out there who are looking up to you and your company, Enda? I mean, you're a top CEO. What advice would you give to women out there who feels a man's world, who feel that they need money to start a business, who feel that, they get sexually harassed by men? What's your advice to them?
I would say we are in a much better generation than our mothers and grandmothers were. So I would say, it's difficult. I'm not discounting the difficulty of a lot of work situations or difficulties that women face in the work front. But I'm also saying we are in a much better place. We have the internet, right? Like that really shrinks the world to our hands, literally at the palm of our hands. We have, through the internet, you can really access learning resources that you would never access in your maybe local university or something like that. Through that, you can learn from people who have done incredible things. through the internet, you can reach a customer in India just as easy as you would reach a customer in Nairobi or Accra. Through the internet, you can learn so much. You can pay money, receive money, and do stuff like that. So my mentality is, okay, it is difficult, but it is so much better than where our mothers and grandmothers and great grandmothers were. Now, if you kind of remove yourself and put yourself in that mindset, then it is more of, okay, now what can I do, right? And we should never discount the starting small. I think a lot of us look and say, I want to be like Bill Gates, I want to be like Warren Buffett, I want to be like, but you forget that even Bill Gates had a small computer in a room at some point and he was trying to figure that out. Same for a lot of businessmen. So I would say that every journey starts with a step, as cliche as it sounds. You have to have a plan and say, this is what I want to achieve in this year or in the next 6 months. And that's all you need to focus on. And I said, today, what am I supposed to do in order to achieve that plan? I'm supposed to do the market research. Do the market research, read the books, go to the internet, read what these marketing gurus are saying, try to understand your business. That's a check done. At least you know something. Tomorrow, find out, okay, where am I going to find I don't have money. How am I able to fundraise or to do something like that? That's literally how I started. And that's how I ended up on crowdfunding. I didn't even know it existed. It was just more of, this is something people are trying to do and I can do that. So my advice is start small, but start, And when you start, the magical thing that happens is you actually meet people along the way who have been on that journey or are going through that journey with you. And so you just reach out and say, hey, I saw you in a similar industry. Are you doing anything different or something like that? And they'll tell you, oh, this is how I do it, or this is how I try it. So there is no magic to success. There is no sudden shot to fame. There is just work, and that work incrementally is what makes your business. And I would say, I would encourage more women to get into business because it gives you freedom. It gives you freedom to make your own money. It gives you freedom to make better choices for yourself, for your children, for your family. And I think it's worth doing it. But I would also caution that if you have a job, don't, make sure that you know what you're doing before you leave your job. You kind of have to have that income coming in. If you don't have it, put in the extra effort to make sure that it works. But also you can partner with someone who's working. They might give you capital and stuff like that. But the overall advice is just start. And when you get stuck, reach out to people. Don't just go lock yourself in the room and cry. Like, just figure out who else can I reach for. At the end of the day, what I've learned is persistence is really what brings. Once you talk to a girl from Ghana who makes shoes, maybe we should talk to her. That's with the internet. And you can also social media to create your stuff. I don't know if you've seen the really massive rise of Ugandan TikTokers and Instagrammers. They're like deep in the village and they inspire me so much because I'm like, they are deep in the village and they're winning awards. They're doing all these things. Do they have money? No, they don't. Do they have resources? They don't, but they are using the phone and they are tapping into the world. And I'm like, that's what makes this generation different. You don't need a godfather, you don't need a gatekeeper. The internet can allow you to do everything.
Well said, well said, well said. The internet can allow you to do everything. All right, Navalayo, thank you so much for being with us here on Just for Women Africa. We really appreciate it. We look forward, we wish you all the best. We look forward to interviewing you again in future.
Thank you.
And to our viewers who are watching, do not forget to like, subscribe, tell a friend who knows a friend about Just for Women Africa. And from Navalayo and us all the way in Nairobi, it will be bye.
Bye. All the best.